Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Dee Dee from Dee Dee's Fan Den.
Hey.
And along with my co host, Jenna P2003 and Annette from Mystery Snow Guardians, we would like to welcome you to the 7th Aquarium Hall giveaway sponsored by the Fishfam.link YouTube channel. Now, the series of live streams has been created to provide an opportunity for this community to either highlight their aquarium based businesses or an aquarium based business of their choosing. Now, if you're new to this channel, I'm going to share how this Fish Fam Aquarium Hall link thing goes. And what we're going to do, a business or somebody contacts us and at fishfamlink@gmail.com. Now, once the sponsorship has been determined, a guest shopper or the sponsor themselves will go on that sponsored website, select $100 worth of items or stock, whatever they have, and then sometime during this live stream, a lucky chat member is going to win all the items in that cart. So, but depending on where you live, some restrictions may apply, and you must be 18 to win. Now, I'm going to turn this over to Jenna P. so she can introduce our guest and the sponsored website.
Okay, so our guest shopper today is Roxanne with Foxy's Fishes, and our sponsor is Josh's Frogs. So we asked Roxanne because if you didn't know, in addition to having just an amazing store herself with Peplin Creek Aquatics and live stream with the Hot Mess Express, she also is great at terrariums, and we thought that would be perfect for this Josh's Frogs giveaway. So Roxanne, did you want to tell us a little bit?
Yes. Today we're going to do a little bit something a little bit different. Instead of shopping for our aquarium related pets, we are going to be building a vivarium for Starry Night reed frogs. So I thought that would be a really good use of Josh's Frogs gift card, and we can go through step by step on how to build a good vivarium for Starry Night reed frogs, and check out some of the cool things that Josh's Frogs has on the website. And learn a little bit about Starry Night reed frogs along the way, because they're a very cool frog, but not a lot of people know about them, and they are an excellent beginner's frog.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, because to navigate, we're going to go to Fishfam.link and find Josh's Frogs. We have all of their links. And if you didn't notice this new feature that was added, we have the most recent community post up here. I don't know about other people, but for me, community posts sometimes get lost in YouTube and I don't always see them. So this is a great way to bring it to people's attention. And you said Starry Night reed frog. So I just wanted to show what they look like.
Aren't they gorgeous? These guys are reed frogs. They are small. They are marginal dwelling, semi-arboreal frogs. So they don't get very big. The males reach about 1 inch in size. The females reach about 1.5 inches. And they are just very, very cool frogs. Like I said, they're very good for beginners. So I thought this would be an excellent choice for today's vivarium haul today.
They are pretty.
So for the reed frogs, they originate from sub-Saharan Africa. Many in the pet trade are actually wild caught, but Josh's frogs are not. They're actually captive bred in-house and with tons of love and care. And I really love that because that really lays way to conservation and preservation of the species and their natural habitat. So I really like that Josh's Frogs not only has these, but they're bred in-house and they're so well cared for. If you guys would like to source this frog, it's super easy to care for. They don't require large exposure or fancy setup. Simple setup can consist of moist paper towels, sphagnum moss as a substrate, a potted plant, and a water bowl if you want to be basic. But today we're going to be a little tiny bit fancy. So, but before I go any further, I wanted to let you guys know that it's very important to know that although these are great beginner frogs, you do not want to handle these guys too much. And there are three main reasons for this. One, because they are so very tiny and we are not, and we can accidentally hurt them without meaning to. Two, they can dry out very fast. So you don't want to have them outside of their enclosure handling them too much because they can dry out very fast. And number three, their bodies are super absorbent, and what we have on our hands can be toxic to them. So we don't want to be handling them too much so they're not absorbing things. So the only time you really want to handle your frog is when necessary, moving them and such. And when you do, you want to make sure that your hands are freshly washed with unscented soap and make sure that it's aloe free because amphibians are allergic to aloe, actually highly toxic to them, I should say.
And
So,
I did
I'm
want
sorry.
to bring up too. You said that in addition to this Starry Night reed frog, did you say that the other type, this blueback reed frog, is a variant?
Yes, they are a variant of the Starry Night reed frog, so a setup would work for them just as well. And they're just another cutie. They just have a different pattern than the Starry Nights. And there are different how do you say grades? There are different grades to the patterns of a starry night, and the one you're seeing in the second position there on the second row is like the A grade um, quality patterning of them, but the blue backs are more of the varying pattern. And although they're not seen as the A grade, they are more expensive because it's not as common to see the blueback reed frogs, but they're just as cool. And they're the same size, 1 inch for males, 1.5 inch max for females. And these guys can live between 2 and 5 years, but if you are actively breeding them, they tend to have a max lifespan of about 2 years.
And I did read that they are supposed to be relatively easy to breed.
Yes, they are actually relatively easy to breed, which is why I don't understand why so many in the pet trade are wild caught if they are so easy to breed. So that's just why I'm just so appreciative to Josh's Frogs for taking that to heart and starting a breeding program for these guys so the pet trade has a better stock of these guys because they're so cute. Everybody needs a starry night.
So they're not a very expensive animal. They're $40, but we have $100 to spend
Mhm.
that Josh's Frogs donated. So we're not purchasing the animal today. We're getting everything that you would need for the animal, correct?
Yeah, we'll be setting up a successful habitat for the animal. And this is what you would want to do before you purchase the animal anyway. So we will be going through setting up a good habitat, and then you can bring your little pet home when you're ready for him or her.
Okay.
So since
Yeah.
reed frogs are marginal dwellers, they like high humidity, access to water for soaking, and plants strong enough to support their weight. They are nocturnal and they hang out on large leaves and reeds during the day, hence their name, reed frogs. Um, so today's setup for these guys, we're going to be doing in a 10-gallon aquarium. So you guys will need to have your own 10-gallon aquarium for this. You'll also want to have a lid, a normal light that's good enough to grow low plant lights. It doesn't have to be anything special. You're going to want a small bowl for your frog to soak in. And then, of course, when you're ready, your frog. So, besides that, we're going to be providing everything else that you will need for your setup today. Um, so, for these guys, like I said, a 10-gallon will be fine. And this can house 2 to 4 frogs for their whole entire life.
And I see Nathan has a question.
Do they make any noises like at night when you want to sleep? Yes, they do. These guys are nocturnal. So during the day, they just hang out on the reeds, or the plants will be sleeping on the leaves, just chilling. But at night is when they're most active. So they'll be swimming in their bowls. They do have a sound. And Josh's Frogs lists them as a more louder caller, but in my experience, their call still isn't very loud. It sounds like a little, like a baby owl. It's like a hoo, hoo. Or when they're breeding, it'll be like a, but it's very, very low, and it really won't disturb a person unless you need absolute silence. Then you might hear them from time to time.
That was impressive with the sounds.
Not a good mimicker, but I tried.
Because I don't know what they sound like anyway, but it's like it's believable to me.
Holly makes a great point. She says, I have a million frogs in my yard. I wouldn't notice another sound.
And those frogs are way louder than these tiny little guys. So in comparison, you would not hear these guys over the loud screamers in the yard. So for them, a UVB bulb is not needed, but it is appreciated. They like moderate temperatures between 70 to 80 degrees. So unless your room that you're going to keep them in runs cooler than that, you might want to add a heater. But generally, your ambient room temperature is fine for these guys. Let's see what else. I took extensive notes because I get really bad camera brain. So for their environment, we want their environment to be long lasting. So today we're going to be setting up a bioactive environment for these guys. That way you have long-term success keeping them. To start, we're going to want a good drainage layer to hold any excess water in the vivarium. So a good drainage layer for these guys would be the leca or leca. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I usually just say leca. And I know Josh's Frogs carries their Josh's false bottom, which I think is a very funny name. And that'll be an excellent drainage layer for the vivarium.
And it is this one, the false bottom leca.
Yes, it should be 5 quarts. Yes.
Yes.
So you'll be putting this in the bottom of the 10-gallon aquarium, a nice thick, about 1.5 inch layer, drainage layer. And this will just make sure that any excess liquid is wicked out of the soil so the plants stay healthy, and it'll be brought back up through the column and condensation for humidity for the frogs. So this just helps keep everything healthy and the water separated from the soil so everything can stay nice and dry the way it's supposed to be, not overly wet. So after you have your drainage layer, you're going to want to put down some type of barrier cloth to keep your above soils and such out of your drainage layer, because if you block your drainage layer, your soil can get really nasty and funky and gross, and then your vivarium won't have as long of a life. So for this, I believe Josh has some barrier cloth available. And so we're going to want to have a barrier cloth for this. You will cut it to just a little bit bigger than the size of the tank. And then you're going to want to tuck it in the tank over the leca and just fold up the edges. You just want a little bit on these excess on the sides to hold onto the substrate you're going to be putting on top.
So for a 10-gallon aquarium, do you think this 24 by 18 inches more than
Yes.
big enough to cover?
Yes, So that will be, you'll have access to cut off that. So that'll be perfect. So now you have your false bottom layer, you have your barrier layer. So the next thing you're going to want to do on top of that to keep your environment fresh and clean is you're going to want to add a layer of activated charcoal. Now, most aquarium keepers already have activated charcoal at home, so we will not be purchasing this today, but this is just letting you guys know what the next step is. So you have activated charcoal and it's in clump form. You're going to want to break that down a little bit, and you're going to want to put just a very small layer. It doesn't have to be very thick, just enough to cover the barrier cloth. And this will keep your water fresh as purification. And also in this layer, your bioactive cleanup crew, which we'll talk about later, will also like to live and colonize. So this is a very important layer. So make sure you add your activated charcoal on top of your barrier, and you'll just have great success. There'll be less fungal issues. You'll have a great population of your cleanup crew and just a healthier tank. Lady R says, question for Roxanne, do these froggies do well in a vertical exoterra enclosure, or do they do better with more surface area in a 10-gallon? Thanks so much for the information. Well, of course, any semi-arboreal frogs will always appreciate more vertical room. So an exoterra enclosure would be awesome. Actually, the 12 by 12 by 15 would be fantastic. If you have the 18 by 18 by 18, that just means you get to have more frogs. But for today, for us to be on a budget and to be able to start you guys off with a successful environment of vivarium for these froggies, we'll be doing it in the 10-gallon. But always, of course, more vertical room is appreciated. So now that we have our charcoal layer, we're going or want to have our substrate layer. So after we have in our charcoal, let me see where I am in my notes. A good substrate mixture that I know for the plants that we'll want to be keeping in with our reed frogs is the Josh's Frogs Bioactive bedding substrate, specifically for dart frogs. Now, why I chose this substrate is because I know this substrate is safe for frogs. Some substrates will have some things mixed in that aren't safe or aren't correctly balanced for both the frogs because they are very absorbent, like we said earlier. And this mixture is also fantastic for the plants that you're going to want to include in this vivarium.
And so, since this says dart frog on it, would this enclosure also work for dart frogs?
It can work for dart frogs, yes. But the plants that we'll be using today are specifically for reed frogs. But dart frogs can live in this as well. So now that we have our bio bedding, we will want to moisten the soil first. So what we want to do is treat the soil, or not the soil. We want to treat the water first. So we want to make sure that the water is dechlorinated with something safe, like Prime is a good one if you have that at home. But you want to make sure that whatever tap conditioner you use does not have aloe in it, because aloe is toxic to amphibians. And I know Josh has his own brand of tap water conditioner that is amphibian safe. So I think that will be an excellent choice for today.
And something we noticed is that there is one that says ships with animals. Since we are not getting animals, we're saving $1 by choosing this one.
Yes, every dollar counts.
And I'm
today.
assuming foods are not considered animals.
Only if they're live foods.
Okay.
So we will use this to treat our water that we will use to moisten our substrate. And then we will add our substrate layer into the vivarium. Now you want it to be about 2 to 2.5 inches in thickness. This is totally up to how you want to do it, but at least 2 inches so your plants have good substrate to root into. And at this step, we did talk about a watering bowl that they will need. And at this point, if you want to have your watering bowl flush with the landscape, however you scape your tank, you can actually dig a little hole down into the substrate to lay your bowl in there just so you have that bowl shape. And then you can remove your bowl afterwards. But if you'd rather have it sit on top of the substrate, then just disregard everything I just said. You can hold off your bowl later. Question for anyone in chat. I'm trying to encourage tree frogs to lay eggs in my summer tub. Any advice on making this an ideal environment for them? Thanks so much in advance. Yes, and that would be marginal plants. So the more marginal broadleaf plants you have around your tubs, the better, because that will trap the water in the plants. They will want to lay their eggs on those plants, and then their babies will hatch out there too. So it's very cool to have that option. If you provide the environment, if you build the proper environments, they will come. And what I think is really cool, if you get certain plants that hold water in their leaves, they'll actually lay their eggs in the water in the leaves and not actually in the tub. So I think that was pretty cool. So let's see, where was I? Okay, so we have our dechlorinator and we moisten the substrate. Like I said, we add it in. We don't want it soaking wet. You just want it moist enough so when you move it into the vivarium that it's not super dusty and it's more easy to deal with. And then you can shape how you want your landscape to be at this point. If you want high spots, low spots, you can do that now with your substrate. And like I said, 2 to 2.5 inches of substrate will be good. So this the 4 quarts of the substrate will be fantastic. And this water conditioner is really good, so it'll do really well for the frogs. So the next thing we will be doing after you decide if you want to bury your bowl, to leave it flat or not, we will, let's see. We will have time for plants, I believe. I'm sorry, that's such a brain fart. So now we need to have plants for your little froggy to live on because they love to sleep on broadleaf plants. So Josh's Frogs has an excellent plant kit set up for these guys already, and that is a 10-gallon Reed Frog plant pack. And I really like this plant pack because it gives you a little bit of variety for a beginner. So this plant pack will come with 1 tropical plant, 1 vining plant, 1 fern, and 1 bromeliad. And they really love the bromeliads. So all of these are going to be very good. They don't grow too quickly, except the pothos. You might have to trim that back because that can get a little bit out of hand. But when you trim off your excess pieces of pothos, you can either plant it right back in, or you can put them into your aquarium for some more nitrogen absorption. So nitrate absorption, so that you have that bonus with the pothos. So these plants, when you get them, you want to make sure that you take them out of their pots. You want to rinse them thoroughly because you want to make sure that all the dust is off the leaves. If they added any leaf shiners, you want to make sure that they're all rinsed off. But Josh is pretty good about not adding any of that to his plants, but just for the sake of being safe, just give them a good rinse because, like I said earlier, the frogs are very absorbent, so you don't want them getting sick. So we have these plants. You rinse them off. You can place them however you want them in your scape. Now, bromeliad, you can lightly plant it in the soil, but they prefer to be an epiphyte plant. So what are we going to pin a bromeliad to in this vivarium? I think we're going to need a little piece of hardscape, and I think a small piece of cork would work perfect for this. So if we can go and check out the cork flats.
Let's see. Actually,
I believe it's under wood and then cork flats. Yes, the cork flat small will be perfect for the 10-gallon. So with this piece of cork, you can either push it lightly into the substrate so it can hold it up, or you can lean it onto the tank side, but I recommend making sure that it doesn't move at all so the frogs don't accidentally get injured. So I would push it into the substrate just a little bit, and with just a normal plant pin, you can pin the bromeliad right to this cork, and it will take off from there. That'll be so cool. And if you want to actually put the cork near cork with the bromeliad next to the water bowl, that can be where your froggy sleeps during the day and hangs out. So that's just another option to have for them. So the cork will be awesome in there to hold the bromeliad. So next, if you have extra pieces of driftwood, if you have some moss, it can be aquatic, that as long as it can also do a terrestrial. But this environment can be very humid, so aquatic moss can survive on the substrate in here as well. Or if you have extra botanicals, you can enhance the vivarium floor. But today we're on a budget, so we're going to have to bypass these. But I know a lot of aquarium keepers have these as well. So whatever extra you have on hand, just make sure you rinse everything very thoroughly and that nothing is very sharp.
yes.
So after you decide if you want to enhance your aquarium or vivarium floor or not, we need the bioactiveness of this bioactive vivarium. So what we're going to want to add next is the breakdown crew. And for this, we're going to need some temperate springtails. So I believe Josh has an 8-ounce culture of temperate springtails, which would be perfect for starting a 10-gallon vivarium. Now, springtails play a very important part in keeping a vivarium healthy. They are the decomposers of the vivarium. So they will be actively breaking down the leaf litter, any leftover food particles, which for frogs there really shouldn't be much. And they also eat any fungus that tends to grow as things are breaking down. So these guys are very important on not only keeping your vivarium healthy, but also fresh smelling. So your frogs generally won't eat these guys. Now, if they see one out and about, they might opportunistically eat one, but they will not hunt these guys down. These guys will majorly live in the soil, decomposing things, and they'll colonize mostly in the charcoal layer where they'll hatch out their happy little families. So this will be very good just for the long-term success of your vivarium. Let's see what else. Now, you'll want to keep this vivarium at a high humidity level. And in order to do that, you'll need to not only add water to your vivarium when you're finished with all of this, but you'll also want to mist it down as well. So for this, I would advise getting a misting bottle that you specifically have just for your vivarium, for your frogs, to use your treated tap water in. And we can go over and get a Josh's spray bottle. I think the 16-ounce spray bottle will be perfect for this enclosure.
And Nate had a question. Will the springtails overpopulate?
I've never had an issue with the springtails overpopulating. The only way that they can become in excess is if there's so much organic material to break down. But I've never had them to where they've been insane. They usually keep themselves in check. So by just like ram's horn snails, the more you have to feed them, the more there will be. But unlike ram's horn snails, the more you have, the less problems you'll have in your vivarium.
And that was Barbara's question. Do they act like snails?
Yes, they kind of do, Barbara. They kind of do. Just not mystery snails, because mystery snails don't like algae. And that
Good
would
job.
be like the fungal version in a vivarium. So you want to be misting down your frogs' vivarium at least once a day. You want their humidity level to be between 60 and 80%. So you'll mist the vivarium once or twice a day, depending. And at this point, after you mist it, you'll also want to add water to the drainage layer. So as you're watering your plants, after you plant them in for the first time, make sure you have about at least half an inch of water in your false bottom. And you'll be able to see that through the side of your aquarium where your false bottom line is. You want to have an air gap between the water and the false barrier, just so you have good oxygen exchange and condensation replacement. So after we have the misting bottle and we have our water in our tank, let's see what else. Well, we're going to have to know eventually what the temperature is in there and what the humidity level is in there. I mean, we can and figure it out, but I don't think that's always going to be that accurate. So I highly recommend you guys getting a monitor to be able to read the temperature and the humidity level in there. And I know Josh's Frogs carries a variety of them, and I think the best one for this vivarium is going to be the ZooMed Precision Analog Thermometer and Humidity Gauge. So you get 2 in 1. So with this, it'll tell you the temperature on the left-hand side and the humidity on the right-hand side. Now the temperature you want to keep between 70 and 80. Unless you're treating it like a rainy season, trying to get them to breathe, then you'll want to get a little bit warmer, like between 80 and 90, super wet. So at that point, you'll want it 60 to 80% humidity, but if you're trying to breathe them, you want to try to get it 80 to 100% humidity. But just in general, 70 to 80 degrees is standard, 60 to 80 percent humidity is standard for these guys. So you just place this on the inside of your vivarium where you can see it easily. And when you're feeling nervous or you just want to check in on these guys, well, me, you'll be anxiety. Are they warm enough? Are they wet enough? Got to make sure. Just check the gauge and you know that everything's okay. So this will also be added to the cart. And then
My
next,
adults use that as a perch.
do they really? I'm sure the frogs will too. Wherever they can cling to, they're going to be all over the place. So I'm sure you'll find them. You might have to move them to read the gauge occasionally, but at least you have the gauge for safety. So you want to next put in your soaking bowl. So your soaking bowl can be as large as you want it, but I would recommend at least like 4 inches round will be good, and at least 1 inch in depth. 2 inches is better. Your reed frogs love to soak in water a lot of the time during the night. That's where they do a lot of their calling from, is in the water. And you also want to replace this water every day. Make sure it's fresh for them. So you have your bowl in there. You have all your substrate in place, your hardscape, your plants. And then all you really need is your frog. But once you get your frog, what are you going to feed it? These guys need, all amphibians need a special type of food, but when these guys are first born, they like to eat the wingless fruit flies. But when they get a little bit bigger at the size that Josh's frogs ship out, you want to be feeding them the 1A banded crickets, and that'll be an excellent food source for these guys. And I believe Josh has a 250 count, and that'll be an excellent starter for your frogs. Now, I've never cultured these guys to breed them after the fact because I think that's disgusting. So I just feed these guys, and when I run out of them, I just order more. But these guys are going to have all the almost all of the nutritional value that a starry night frog will need, or any reed frog will need. But there's one more thing that you want to add to your crickets before feeding them to your frogs. And frogs need a high source of calcium. The crickets are not a high source of calcium, so you're going to want to dust them in some kind of vitamin powder to supplement this. Josh's frogs has several varieties, but the basic of basics that you'll need for them is the RepCal Ultrafine Calcium with vitamin D3. The calcium ensures that the frogs stay nice and healthy, and vitamin D3 is used for organ production, growth, and also for reproduction health. So this is very important to dust your food with that you feed your frogs to make sure that they have a long and healthy, happy life.
How do you dust them?
Some people put them in a container, the crickets in a container, and they add a little bit of dust and they shake it around a little bit gently to not hurt the crickets. And then they remove the crickets and put them in the enclosure to feed their frogs.
So that's what they look like dusted, I'm guessing.
Yes. And because the reed frogs only get to an inch to an inch and a half in size, these are the perfect size to feed them.
Wow.
So we have 11 things in our cart.
Mhm.
And I believe that you have a coupon code that's going to get this under $100. So people are getting a value. Is this a private coupon code before I type it in?
This is a coupon code that the website Honey gave me yesterday when I was checking out the website. So I believe it is not a private coupon code.
Okay. So anyone could use this coupon code if they don't win, but they want to go
Yes.
purchase something from Josh's Frogs. So that code is 856 PAV.
And it worked yesterday, so let's see if it works today. Yay, it worked!
And so that brought us down to under $100.
Yes, it did.
And so just to review the cart, we are getting the false bottom, the substrate barrier, the bioactive substrate, the chlorinator, the plant kit, a small cork flat, 8-ounce culture of springtails, spray bottle for misting, thermometer and humidity gauge, 250 1/8 inch banded crickets, and the calcium powder.
Yes. And that'll make sure that you have a fantastic start to your reed frog or semi arboreal or arboreal keeping going forward. So I hope that you guys do fantastic. And I hope whoever wins this does an update later on and shows us the enclosure with their tiny new friend and how it's going, because I would love to see that.
So Andy Carson asks, how do you make sure the crickets don't escape?
Don't escape the container that they came in, or don't escape the vivarium. The vivarium, you want to have a lid on it so they cannot escape, but they are going to get around in the vivarium. The frogs will eat most of them because as soon as you put them in there, they're going to want to eat, and they're going to be right on the crickets. But the few that escape should not be able to make it out of the 10-gallon aquarium because they are very tiny. But if they make it out, you might have one that makes it out. That is the life of an amphibian and reptile keeper. Sometimes you just have a stray cricket in the house.
I have had to chase crickets, and I don't like critters, but it's like I don't want it loose either, so I had to suck it up and just get
Yeah.
it quick.
And Zen says, question, can you lightly mist your crickets to get the supplement powders to stick more, or is it that bad? I've never heard of anyone misting them to get the supplement powder to stick to them. I would think that would not be a good idea because you might have an excessive amount of the powder stick to them, and an excessive amount at one time would not be good for the reed frogs. Like if it clumps up, like if you are making pancake batter, you don't want to serve them pancake battered crickets. So I would say just dust them dry.
Could you also add like the roly poly type little critters in there?
Yes, absolutely. You can add isopods, but just know your reed frogs may try to eat them. If they're small enough, they will try to eat them, but you can absolutely add isopods to this vivarium. It would only be a second layer to your decomposer crew.
So Roxanne has a question for you.
Lady R has a question for me.
I mean, sorry.
No, it's okay. Have you ever tried feeding the juvenile axolotl bites that Josh's Frog sells to your axolotls? I have not, Lady R. I have tried 7 different brands of axolotl pellets with all of my axolotls, and none of them will eat any axolotl pellet. The only ones I can get them to eat are the Hikari carnivore pellets, or baby brine shrimp, or the frozen bloodworms, or the red wriggler live worms. I cannot get them to eat axolotl pellets, but you know who does? Every other tank in the house will eat the axolotl pellets, just not the axolotls. So I seem to be raising quite a picky bunch of little monsters here.
They're spoiled.
Yes,
And
they are.
Nathan asked, is this available to everyone, even our friends across the pond? So because there are live plants and live animals in the forms of springtail and crickets, they're not going to ship internationally, but Josh does ship internationally. So if you are looking for substrate and other things, you can order from Josh's Frogs.
Yes, the only thing they don't ship is live goods. So any live animals, any live plants, any live insects, they cannot ship.
And then Zen said, isopods are way more tolerable than crickets. Do you have to have a variety like most critters, or can you supplement something instead of crickets?
You do not need to have variety. Usually crickets are the main source of food for these guys once they reach the size to be able to eat crickets. But you can feed them isopods. You just have to feed them the smaller variety of isopods because, as I said, these frogs are small. So you don't want to be feeding them the ginormous ones that are almost the size of them. You want to make sure to get the smaller sized isopods. But just know, if you add them as cleanup crew and food, you might not have any cleanup crew left.
Yeah, the frogs are not included, Silver.
Unfortunately, no, they're not.
No. But
This
the
is-
frogs are reasonably priced. It was $40 for a frog.
Yes, for one frog. That's a very reasonable price for a beginner frog. Now, like some of the Pac-Man frogs and such, they'll start at like $100. So if you're unsure about getting into frogs and you want an easy frog and you want a frog that isn't highly expensive, the Starry Night Raid frog really is the perfect frog to start with.
And
So
Jeff Kane asked again about the adult size of the frog.
The adult size of the frogs, males reach 1 inch in size and females reach 1 inch, 1.5 inches in size.
They are
So they do
super
stay
tiny.
very small. And they're so cute.
That is little. That's cute.
They are. The smaller something is, the cuter it is, but I think that just means a girl thing.
Well, no, yeah.
Save that for later, Dee Dee.
I like giraffes when they're fully grown.
Yeah.
They can see above most trees.
so we're going to start the giveaway tool. Oh, let me make sure that I am logged in. And do you have a keyword that you would like us to use, Roxanne?
How about hashtag star for the Starry Nights?
Oh, look at my merch on the screen.
Nice.
Create the giveaway.
If you're a patron, it's a Fishfam.link. That happens.
Matt, why is it not?
He said he will enter it manually.
Okay.
I just looked up at the security's camera. I saw the grandbabies here.
The newest one?
Yes. She's doing phenomenal.
Lily.
Yes. She's doing phenomenal. She just had her first checkup. She's only lost 3 ounces. She's doing awesome. They're not worried about any of that. Everything else came back good. Mama's doing awesome. She's super hungry. Lily, she's eating really well. Sometimes she lets Mama sleep.
And Andy Carson is also asking, would it be possible to do a tank with part aquarium with nanofish and part with above habitat with frogs?
You can, but just know that if the fish are small enough, frogs make them. And if the fish are big enough, they can enter the frogs if you want to find the proper pairing of the two.
Now, the size of a terrarium thing enclosure, what was that original size you started all this with?
Okay, so this is set up is for on the cheap a 10-gallon aquarium, but it can also be used in a 12 by 12 by 15 terrarium.
And I'll bet that's what my thing is here. I wish I had gotten it bigger. You always want a bigger one after you get one. It's like so much stuff you can put in there.
I got the 18 by 18 by 18 terrarium, and I keep looking at it thinking I should have got the bigger one.
Now, you could use plants like crypts too, couldn't you, in those?
Yes, you can. Yes, as long as they're the bigger leafed ones and they can support the frog. So
we have 25 entries so far.
And yes, whoever wins this, please do an update of when you have your tiny little friend. I'd love to see how they're doing. We need more starry nights in the hobby. I know Mike's Aquatics and things had some starry nights a couple of years ago, but I haven't seen anything else anywhere else on the starry nights. So they're such beautiful frogs. They're so easy to keep, and more of us should have them.
And here with Josh, he has several different selections, so you can pick the one that you like.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're all captive bred. They're not wild caught, so you don't have to worry about the environment being harmed or the species being brought down by them being wild caught. And these guys, because they're bred in-house, are super, super healthy, so you don't have to worry about their health.
Daniel Jones asked, how do we enter? Enter hashtag star right up here.
Everything for star stuffs.
Did you pick this because of the fish that Brian has, the starry whatever cichlids?
Maybe.
I just had an inkling that might have had something to do with it.
And they're just really awesome frogs. They really are. They're gorgeous, but you know, starry stars. Love stars.
Reading is a skill.
Wheel music provided by Midril Singh. That's a new announcement at the bottom of the wheel. That's very cool.
Yes. So I've been writing music for the wheel, and he sent new music last night.
Nice. Vidril is pretty swell.
Oh,
Micro geckos, I'm collecting them much easier than frogs. They only grow to 3 inches max. Expensive right now, but more people breed them, the cheaper they are. Cool. I haven't had much experience with reptiles. The only one I ever had was an iguana, and his name was Ziggy, and he got to 6 feet. He was ginormous, and he was literally a puppy. He was everywhere with me. He was really cool. Nanny says, are there any aquarium plants that grow immersed like Anubis, for example, that are not safe for these frogs? That is a good question. And I honestly am not sure of that question. I would for just because of the general knowledge that usually plants that make a milky substance when broken generally are toxic. I would not, that's a good way to test a plant, is to break a leaf, and if it creates something of a milky substance, not to add that to your vivarium. But I am not honestly sure if there's any plants that would be toxic to the frogs, unless there's something like, let's see, I can't think of the name, the carnivorous ones. There we go. I was going to say the ones that eat flies.
like the Venus flytraps and stuff.
Yes, I probably wouldn't do the carnivorous plants in there, because if the frogs jump in, they're going to close on them. And they also have the digestive enzymes that are inside, so that would hurt the frog's skin. Any plants that make that milky substance, and just generally don't ever put in plants that are not rinsed. You want to make sure that they're rinsed. You want to make sure that all the fertilizers from where they came from are off the leaves. You want to make sure that any leaf shiners are off there, so the frogs do not absorb that directly into their body. Silver Creek says daffodils and Easter lily are supposedly toxic to frogs. Easter lily. That's an interesting one. That's good to know. Thank you for that.
And not toxic, but earlier when we were talking about plants before the stream, you said that they like to jump on the plants. So broadleaf plants are better for these frogs.
Yes, they want to be broadleaf. They want to be more of a stiffer leaf so that they can support the frog's weight. No pothos with Pac-Mans. But for the reed frogs, pothos is totally safe.
Okay, we have 7 minutes left in the stream. I want to make sure that we have time to make sure a winner is here.
I wonder how aggressive these frogs are. I wonder if they could go with morning geckos. Morning geckos are only like 1.5 inches. Well, if a morning gecko can fit in a reed frog's mouth, I would not put it in the tank. Frogs are frogs, and when they're hungry, they will eat. And even though these guys are tiny, they can actually eat pretty good sized prey. It's just better to give them the smaller ones so there's no choking issues. But I don't think they can consume a full-size morning gecko, but I'm not sure if they wouldn't eat a baby one.
And last chance to enter. Whip asked what the hashtag is. It is #star. I'm going to quickly show the cart one more time, just so that people can see what is in it. So it is the 5 quarts false bottom leca, the substrate barrier 24 by 18 inches, 4 quarts of the bioactive substrate, 4 ounces water conditioner, the 10-gallon 4-plant vivarium plant kit for reed frogs, small cork flat for you to affix your epiphyte bromeliad.
Yes.
The 8-ounce springtail culture, 16-ounce spray bottle for misting, the thermometer and humidity gauge, 250 1/8 inch banded crickets, and the calcium powder to supplement. And with it was $117.02, and with the coupon code, which if you want to order from Josh's Frogs, this coupon code took off some money, and now it is just under 97. It's at 97.64 plus taxes. It's okay that it's a little bit more. This is adding my address right now, but it will be the winner's address, so that might change the sales tax.
But this is an excellent startup kit, and you guys are getting it for free, the winner. So exciting.
Yes, so all they need on their own is a 10-gallon aquarium with a lid and basic light, any type of light, and a bowl for water.
Yes.
And then whatever frog.
Yes.
Because they need the little swimming pools.
Yes, because these guys are.
You could do a crafted project and make one like Ed would.
That would be so cool.
So we're going to go ahead and spin. Before I spin, you must be here to claim your prize. Yes. Oh, and the activated charcoal.
Yes. The activated charcoal is not in the cart. That is something that most fish keepers have at home, which is why we did not include it to keep it under $100.
Yes. Yeah, and most people, I would bet most of the fish keepers here have a spare tank or light. I have a 5-gallon tank that is just spare and sitting here in this room with me that I haven't put anything in. So, and the Petco $1 per gallon sale, it's very easy to pick up a 10-gallon tank.
Yes, because also when Petco's not running it, usually PetSmart is. So they alternate so you can get a good deal. Just watch for the ads.
So, okay, I'm going to go ahead.
And you said that room temperature, they're fine in.
Yes, ambient temperature between 70 and 80 is fine. If you're dipping a little bit cooler than that, you can add yourself a little bit of a UVB lamp. But with these guys, a UVB lamp is not necessary. But if you want to, if you need to for a little bit of heat, you can. A 2.0 will be fine for these guys, for whether it's the 12 by 12 by 15 or this.
Okay, are we ready to spin?
Yep. Good luck, guys. Mississippi.
Sherry. How long does
that
she have to
is Sherry.
respond?
Congratulations, Sherry. Send us.
She's here.
We have a. Well, there it is. Hello at Fishfam.link. And I'm going to record the winner and close. And I just got a notice to thank the following who donated to the tip jar during the stream. That is Matt, Zen Ginger, Only Oscars, Kelly Foreman, and Mark Sturlson. So thank you so much for donating to the tip jar. And again, congratulations to Sherry, Mississippi Hippie. As soon as we get your address, I'm going to get that sent out to you today. Thank you again, Frogs, for donating a $100 gift card to us so that we could make this happen. Thank you so much, Roxanne, for shopping with us and sharing your knowledge.
More than welcome. Anytime.
So, do we have any last comments or questions really quick?
Do you want to explain, in case if somebody's new, how they could be a sponsor or whatever again?
Yeah. So if you would like to sponsor a giveaway, email hello@fishfam.link. We are generally looking for at least $100 just to make it worth it for people who are coming in. So they're winning and we're helping the community. So just contact us there. You can also message any of us if you have any questions. And yeah, that's it. We have a few more donations set up for the next few months, but we want to keep this going as long as possible.
This is nice. And if you get a chance, go over and give his website a look through. There's lots of stuff out there we didn't see.
Yeah, like axolotls. Anybody need one? But they have all kinds of things. They have amphibians, they have reptiles, they have fish, they have axolotls, they have insects as pets. So definitely give Josh's Frogs website a check. I think you'll find something you may want to take home.
So I just saw Sherry asked if we can give this giveaway to Jess at TAM. So is Jess still here? We can reach out to her. I know she was here a minute ago, but I have her phone number. I can text her and just verify.
And she's actually working at the same time and listening.
So, and I have Jess's address, so I just need to make sure that she does want it. And if she does not,
she's here.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes. So Jess, just send us your address just to make sure, and I will get this sent off today.
Congrats, Jess. And that was so very kind of you, Sherry.
And yes, don't forget, if you want to support Fishfam.link, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Matt does a lot of work behind the scenes constantly. If you didn't notice, we have new songs on the wheel. This whole wheel is new. It's a great way to offer a giveaway option where you can actually see the people who entered. It's accessible to people who don't use StreamYard. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And he volunteers so much of his free time. So,
and we got a community page this week.
Yes. So now when you go to pages like, if we look up Josh's Frogs, you can see his most recent community post at the top.
Cool.
So, okay. So looking at the calendar, I know Caleb said that he's going. Clancy Moss should be going soon. Dee Dee, you have a stream on the calendar for an hour and a half from now.
3:30 Eastern.
Yes. And I know that Eakins is going to be on the Focus on tonight.
Awesome.
It's about time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a cool youngin'.
Very fond of Ian and Kat. Cool people.
He has great duckweed.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us.
Yes.
Have a great rest of your weekend. We will see people in streams, and we'll see you back here next month for our next giveaway.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.